Good morning, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane, where our mission is to join together to create a nourishing, liberal, religious home and to champion justice, diversity, and environmental stewardship in our wider world. Or as we say in short, to create community, find meaning, and work for justice. We're glad to have you with us this morning, whether you're here with us in person or streaming with us. We're so glad that you have joined us today. UUCS is a very welcoming congregation, and we appreciate your unique experiences, backgrounds, beliefs, and lifestyles. This morning, we are sharing, remembering, and honoring those we have loved and lost in 2022. Our annual Requiem service is time for us as a church community to reflect on the life of both church members as well as family members lost in the past year. We dedicate this service to the memories of those who have passed before us and to share in a joyful recognition of those remarkable people who, through the lives they led, enhanced our own journeys.
Thank you, Gordon. Before we begin our recognition of those we lost in 2022, I'd like to turn your attention to our unity candle up here in front. Our tradition is to light this candle when we learn of the passing of one of our members. And this week, we want to let you know of our loss of Bill Green, a longtime member of our church, a runner, a poet, a singer, a father to Marshall and Kaylin, and a husband to our friend Linda Green. I also had the privilege of working professionally with Dr. Green at times during his career as a pediatrician in our community. And I can tell you there is no greater honor bestowed on any physician in our community, than to be well respected by the nurses he works with. Dr. Green was one of those. So we have our unity candle lit for Bill Green this morning to remember his spark here in our church and out in the wider community. I'd also like to take just a moment to remind us all today of our beautiful memorial garden on the north side of our church grounds outside the door here. Today may not be the best day to take a walk, but you're always welcome to take a stroll through the pathways, to admire the plants and the features, and to view the stone columns of engraved names of others we've lost and chosen to be memorialized in such a peaceful setting.
Thank you, Lynn. So why don't we now take a few moments to greet one another. Be sure to say hello to someone that you've not met today, and take a moment to say hello. It's okay. Thank you. We'll have more time to greet one another and share our stories during social hour after the service. And today there are cookies there for you after the service. So we'll join together then. So we now turn from our informal greeting of one another to formally begin our service by lighting our chalice, the symbol of Unitarian Universalism, the symbol of our unity and solidarity, of our openness and inclusion, of our community and our individual uniquenesses. May this small flame be our offering of warmth to those who are cold and alone, and a light to those in darkness. May it be a flame that ignites justice in our world and a beacon of hope to those in need. And may it reflect at least a spark of truth wherever truth has been lost, and cast a healthy shadow of doubt where it has been found.
Our opening reflection this morning is a poem written by our own Lisa Conger entitled A Softer Landing. We have been gifted by the lives of those who have passed and gone before us. The weight of their loss aches within us, large and looming. But as we think of them, we are lifted by remembrances of their qualities and quirks, their ideals and idiosyncrasies, their passions and persuasions, their features, and even their flaws. We remember meaningful conversations and lively discussions, moments of laughter or of beauty shared. May we remember those times cooking together, hiking, or volunteering, of concerts celebrated and songs sung, or just the quiet sharing of hopes, fears, and dreams over coffee and tea. May we remember what they loved, their families, friends, pets, gardens, nature. And may we remember them through the light of our love, which illuminates and expands their lives beyond their absent breathing and gives us a softer landing in our sorrow.
We will now kindle our candles of care. Each time we gather as a congregation, there are always those who are with us in our minds and our hearts, and who we want to wrap in our love and care. This morning, we'd like to especially express care for Linda Green and her family, the family of Tyree Nichols, Candace Schmidt, who's a little bit under the weather this morning, and the people of Ukraine who are headed into their second year of war. Let us share a moment in silence, embracing others who are here and here in our hearts and minds this morning. You're welcome to say their names aloud as you wish. Those named aloud and those embraced in our silence, and all those who are suffering elsewhere in our world at this hour, we hold in our community of compassion.
Our first hymn of the morning is number 6, Just As Long As I Have Breath. Maura will play it through completely so that you can hear the melody. Please rise as you're willing and able.
This morning we do not have a story for all ages, but at this time we would like to sing the children out to RE. Today, we're going to honor and remember those who have passed in 2022. And we'll start with Lee Smith. Longtime member Lee Smith was born on December 27, 1923, and passed away on February 25, 2022. In 1970, Lee decided to move her family from Baltimore to Spokane, a town she'd driven through once and had found attractive. She knew no one here and did not have a place to live or a job. She discovered there was a Unitarian church in Spokane, and with that knowledge, she made her plans. Her oldest son was already launched, and her second son wanted to stay longer in Baltimore, so Lee packed up her 3 younger children and the cat. And for the next few weeks, the family camped across Canada, living on a shoestring, visiting Niagara Falls, battling hordes of mosquitoes, marveling at the northern lights, losing their beloved cat in the Rockies, and finally arriving. Home for the next couple of weeks was Riverside State Park, and from there, Lee went off to look for work, a place to live, a life. One evening, she came home to announce she had found a house to buy. A first, since the family had never owned a home. Lee lived in this home for the next 52 years, and it was where she peacefully died. Lee found work, became very involved in the Unitarian Church here, raised her 4 children, and introduced them to the outdoor activities of skiing, hiking, and canoeing. Lee counted this move to Spokane and the raising of her children as a single mother as some of her greatest accomplishments. Mary Monroe. UUCS member Mary Monroe passed away last year on May 24th. She was born in Buffalo, New York, and began attending the University of Michigan in 1954, where she met her future husband, Alden Parker, and graduated with an education degree. The couple with their 3 children moved to Spokane in 1961, camping their way across the country while Mary was 8 months pregnant with their 4th child. Mary built a career in fundraising and development in the nonprofit social service sector in Spokane. Mary later married Glenn Elkins before being widowed in 1979. And in 1981, Mary sold most of her possessions to go live on a steel-hulled diesel boat with Larry Monroe, who worked as a city engineer in Kodiak, Alaska. Mary loved the puffins and sea lions and going gill netting for silvers in her little wooden skiff. She was director of the Kodiak Women's Resource and Crisis Center. Later was manager of the Child Development Center at the U.S. Coast Guard base on Kodiak Island, and also ran a successful Kodiak bed and breakfast for 2 decades. Mary also served 2 terms on the Kodiak Island Borough Assembly and became presiding officer in 1995. She also served 2 terms on the Kodiak City Council and helped establish a UU fellowship there. Mary returned to Spokane in 2011 and was deeply engaged in the lives of her 7 grandchildren and 7 great-grandchildren. Mary is survived by her 4 children, Matthew Parker, Betsy Hammond, Melissa Parker, and Andy Parker. Mary was a devoted member of UUCS during much of her adult life, serving as director of religious education for several years and as president of the Board of Trustees. Mary's life was full of music, singing in choirs, and encouraging her children and grandchildren to take music lessons and to perform. She loved hiking, became a yoga practitioner, and an avid runner, completing 2 marathons in her 40s. Mary was incredibly generous toward family and friends with her time, caring, and love. Just a few weeks shy of her death in May, in the grim grip of advanced Parkinson's, Mary was still cracking jokes that would make people laugh out loud. Owen Meir. On July 28th, Owen Meir passed away in Spokane. Born in Bismarck, North Dakota, on February 22, 1945, his family moved to Spokane in 1953. Owen's early life was enriched by his family travels, and at age 16, he and his family began 2 years in Lashkar-Gah, Afghanistan. He shared memories of riding his Honda 50 motorcycle over gravel roads to drink prohibited alcohol and traversing the Hindu Kush Mountains to see the tallest statue of Buddha in the world, which was recently destroyed by the Taliban. Owen joined the Army in 1967, studied Turkish and Russian, and then spent a year in Turkey listening in on Soviet naval and air bases on the Black Sea. After the Army, he spent over 20 years in the Navy and Air Force Reserves. Owen was a long life student, and his studies included automotive repair, electrical circuits and theory, astronomy, history, real estate, and film history. His broad range of interests led to Owen's involvement with many groups: SINES, S-I-N-E-S, environmental scientists, Glacial Lake Missoula Society, the Engineers Forum, the Bing Theater Group, the Mac Museum, KPBX, the Northwest Lands Council, and many other groups. Owen joined UUCS in 1982, and he is remembered by our church for his persistent recycling efforts, his thoughtful commentary, his insightful article clippings, and his frugalness is legendary. He had a brilliant and curious mind that found expression in so many areas, and he loved to share new things he had learned with others. Doug Hugan. Doug Hugan was born on July 11, 1935, in Monroe, Iowa. He graduated from Iowa State College in 1957 as a technical journalism graduate. In 1958, Doug joined the U.S. Army Reserve on active duty. In Helena, Montana, he was the desk editor with the Associated Press, but in 1966, Doug decided he wanted to be a minister. And while he attended the Iliff School of Theology, he was also the city reporter for the Denver Post. In 1977, Doug moved to Spokane, where he worked for the Spokesman Review. He was a member of UUCS for over 30 years, where he was a member of the singles group and the church choir. Doug joined the Spokane Symphonic Chorale, and because he had such a beautiful speaking and singing bass baritone voice, he was chosen to be in over 11 productions, including Annie Get Your Gun as Buffalo Bill, Fiddler on the Roof as Lazar Wolf the Butcher, and Kiss Me Kate as Petruchio. In 1984, Doug, along with his wife Diane, opened Rainbow School, a private school that used individualized instruction and small class sizes. The school attracted very shy students, children who might have been behind or ahead of their supposed grade levels, and students with ADD or ADHD or bipolar disorders. After this, Doug ran the Job Resource Center, which worked with people who were challenged mentally and physically by finding them employment and providing needed support. Washington State hired the Job Resource Center to teach in 13 state prisons. In 1999, Doug wrote a book, Cataclysm: When Human Stories Meet the Earth's Faults. This was a story of survival and the geological history behind a 7.5 earthquake in 1995 near West Yellowstone, Montana. Doug passed away on August 4th, 2022. Larry Richards. Larry Richards passed away peacefully at the home of his friends in New Zealand on September 11th of 2022. He was a longtime and very loyal member of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane, serving on the Long Range Planning Committee when we were meeting in the Glover House, and as chair of the building committee for our current location here in Spokane. The building committee met every week for 2 years, and for many years, he attended the UUA Elliott Institute on the West Coast, attending every summer for a long period of time. He was a professor at Eastern Washington University, teaching in the Computer and Technology Department. Larry grew up in Chicago and loved jazz music, often participating in the Jazz Society at various locations where he happened to be living at the time. After Larry retired, he moved to a remote South Sea island, Aitutaki. That was part of the Cook Islands, where he lived for many years and taught in the school system. What would have been his salary went to buy computers so a computer curriculum could be taught in the high school. Larry also opened a restaurant on the island and met the tourists as they arrived at the airport to invite them to his restaurant. He always felt he had made the right move and was very happy there. 2 years before he died, he moved with his Aitutaki friends to New Zealand, where he became a New Zealand citizen. When he became ill with cancer, he decided to take advantage of assisted suicide, which is readily available there. A friend of Larry's, Tracy Spears, shared that he is resting under a beautiful cherry tree in our garden overlooking the lake, and I know he is smiling down on all of you today. Phil Rodriguez. Phil Rodriguez was born on March 22, 1946 in Louisiana and passed away last year on September 11, 2022. He was raised in Louisiana and, according to him, escaped at the age of 17. He joined the Air Force and served in Thailand during the Vietnam War as a fuels specialist. Upon retirement after 20 years of service, he was awarded the Meritus Service Medal, along with several other commendations. Phil then joined the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA, in Florida, where he was the safety manager for launch pads A and B. He continued his safety career in California as safety manager at Dryden Flight Research Center, and later he became director of safety and chief of systems safety at the Space and Missile Systems Center in El Segundo, California. He retired in 2008. Phil loved cars, and he had a Dodge Super Bee that he raced in Montana, Florida, and Washington. His love of cars continued, and over a year ago, he purchased his dream car, a Corvette Stingray. Phil was also an RV enthusiast and had a website about motorhome care and maintenance. He spent time on his ham radio, and he helped his neighborhood community to stay connected, as well as working with Stevens County to take possession and responsibility for the community road. When asked how long he and his wife Barbara had been married, he would pause and then say, 72 years, which didn't seem possible. Phil then explained he had been married to his first wife, Charlene, for 20 years. Barbara had been married to her first husband, Lynn, for 20 years, and that he and Barbara had been married for 32 years. That adds up to 72 years. In addition to Barbara, Phil is survived by his 2 children, Amy and Phil Jr., Barbara's 2 children, Derek and Darren, and their 11 grandchildren. Ray Emerson. Ray Emerson was a UUCS member and an active participant in the Kurtkara Dojo, and he was truly a Renaissance man. He could ski, scuba dive, and sail, make and repair anything, including rebuilding an engine. He was an actor, a singer, and a gifted comedian. In the Kurtkara Dojo, he was much loved for his kindness, intelligence, and whimsical sense of humor. He would get people laughing so hard they found it hard to stop. Ray earned a teaching degree from Whitworth University and a master's and a doctorate in marine biology and biological oceanography from the University of Southern California. For most of his career, he taught at various universities and participated in marine biology research. After living and teaching in Alaska for 25 years, Ray sold his house, bought a sailboat, and along with his wife Judy, began a year-long sailing adventure across the Pacific Ocean. Later, he would write a book about this experience entitled Sell Your House and Buy a Sailboat, and then sail halfway around the world. Ray would say that this sailing adventure was the most exciting time of his life, with his wife Judy interjecting, well, except for when we got married and when each of our 2 children were born, right? He, of course, deferred to Judy, who he often called my darling wife. Ray also worked as a park ranger and was a naturalist, a dream analyst, stockbroker, and an environmental activist. Ray passed away here in Spokane on October 27th at the age of 85. Rosemary Belaise. Rosemary Belaise Schneider passed away on December 17th, 2022, at the age of 91. Rosemary was born and lived her entire life here in Spokane and was a very private person. Rosemary was involved in the creation of the Mushroom Gallery in downtown Spokane. She married the love of her life, Harold, in September of 1950. She was the great woman behind the great man and supported Harold in many ways until his death in 2017. Rosemary is survived by 3 children, Kurt, Andrea, and Erica, as well as many grandchildren and great-grandchildren.
We also want to share with you today a list of names of family and friends of members of our congregation. Andrew Robert Enns, son of Eleanor Enns. Duncan Bartlett, the nephew of Jane Higuera. Evelyn Marie Diddens, the mother of Gordon Diddens. Members of our LGBTQ seniors of the Inland Northwest group want to remember our friends Patricia Hicks, her partner Sandy Williams, Danny Hawkins, and Nancy Thompson, and Alice Emerson, who was a friend of Candace Schmidt.
As we move into a time of meditation, I invite you to adjust your position so you're comfortable. Put your feet on the floor, You may close your eyes if you wish. Take a deep breath in and breathe out. And reflect on these words. It is so easy in this busy life to forget to remember. Remember those we've loved and lost. It is also easy to forget those we love who are still with us. In both cases, take pause for a moment each day to bring back memories of those lost and visually reconnect with those we love.
Good morning. As we look back today to honor the members of our congregation and their friends who died in 2022, we're also looking ahead to our church's enduring mission. How do we ensure that we will continue to be a beacon of liberalism and an engine of social justice? How can we provide for our church's future after we are gone? One concrete way is through our endowment fund, a growing contributor to our annual budgets and our long-term stability. After the painful 2020 conflicts that threatened our church amid ongoing disagreements with UUA leadership, your endowment team took action, eventually recommending that we move our funds out of the UUA's Common Endowment Fund in Boston. One important consideration was the language in our contract that said UUA would become the owner of any funds and church properties owned by a church that dissolves. We spent months exploring our options, interviewing investment managers at Schwab's local office here, the Innovia Foundation, and the Seattle Foundation. Last year, our Board of Trustees approved the endowment team's recommendation to create a reserve fund at the Seattle Foundation, which is the largest community foundation in the Pacific Northwest with nearly $1 billion in assets. When we moved the funds out of Boston last year, they totaled $715,000. Now, with additional contributions from church members that totaled $20,590 last year, plus growth through appreciation, our fund is worth $748,000. It's invested in a low-cost index fund at the Seattle Foundation. We'll share with you an official performance report in mid-February that will reflect our reserve fund's performance through December 2022. Today, we're asking you to consider a memorial gift donation, perhaps in the name of some of those we honor today or in future gifts from your estate. Membership in the UUCS Legacy Society honors those making a current gift of $1,000 or more, or those who plan to make an estate gift in their wills. If you choose to contribute, please write endowment or memorial gift on your check. You can also mail endowment at uuspokane.org or call the church office. Your endowment team, myself, Mary Giannini, Dan Ekert, Donna Borden-Rhodes, Richard Steele, and Susan Stieritz is always available for questions. Our fund's growth, I think it's important to note, means larger contributions each year to our church's operating budget, which reduces pressures on pledging. Last year, we were able to contribute $29,000 to our operating budget from a prudent 4.5% withdrawal. With your materials you were given today, there are envelopes. If you want to decide today, you can put them in the contribution bowls at the back of the room. If you want to mail this in, it's conveniently labeled endowment fund, so you can take it with you and make further considerations. Our church has already had a major impact in Spokane, working for marriage equality, earned sick and safe leave, child care, and other social justice issues. Our new reserve fund provides us an effective tool to leverage our congregational power and serve our members for decades to come. So thank you for your consideration.
Our final hymn of the morning is number 295, Sing Out Praises for the Journey. Please rise as you're willing and able, and Maura will play it through all the way.
As we close today, if you'd like to join hands, our benediction I'm sharing are the words of Mary Oliver. Mary Oliver says, to live in this world, you must be able to do three things: to love what is mortal, to hold it against your bones knowing your own life depends on it, and when the time comes to let it go, to let it go. Amen. Blessed be. Salam alaikum and shalom.
Shalom.